Welcome, everybody. Episode 13 of the Raw Men podcast with myself and Mark Nebo. And we were expecting Robert M. Price, the author, historian, expert on biblical history, scriptural history, and that sort of thing. I talked to him earlier today. I gave him the times. I don't know what has happened, but he's not available. We've been waiting for him the last hour. Sent a couple more messages. I don't know. Gave him my phone number if he needs any help.
He might pop in. We'll see.
I gave him a message to say so. I did. So, in the meantime, Mark, why don't you you got any business to discuss?
Yes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, after a couple weeks off for the holidays and for recuperation and the New Year's, etc. I want to say that tonight is the very first episode where we will have the 30-minute Ramen Podcast supporter-only hangout. It'll be directly after the show. If you signed up during the show, I won't know, so you won't get an invite. But if you signed up beforehand, you'll be in the private group on Facebook. You'll be able to click on the link and come in. We may just use this one, frankly, since we're not having a guest. But usually it'll be a different link. That being said, we're inviting people to come and support the show. If you're already a $20 or more Patreon supporter of Aaron Ra and his wife Lalandra's efforts with the curriculum building, then you get the supporter membership for free, gets all the benefits that come with that. I just need you to send me a message on Facebook, and I'll take care of that. If you're not, it's $3.99 a month, and it will get you added to our private group where Aaron and I will discuss events, upcoming shows, get your ideas for guests, things like that, and you'll be able to join us for the private supporter-only hangouts after the show, often with the guests. We'll try to have the guests as many times as we can, too. So that's a good opportunity. Another thing, the Pennsylvania Atheist Conference in September in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, is going to be a ramen-infused event. We're super excited about it. The Holy Trinity Tour, the Unholy Trinity Tour with Aaron, Matt Dillahunty, and Seth Andrews will be there. We will be doing a live ramen podcast from there, and I will be the MC for the event as well. So we're very excited about that. Get your tickets at atheistspa.com, atheistpa.com, no S. .org, atheistpa.org. So join up for that. Sign up to be a supporter. We really appreciate it. Aaron, where do we want to go without Robert here yet?
All right. Well, I was just going to mention that just posted today. I've got a date for the not for the Unholy Trinity Down Under, but Matt and I are going to be speaking on Tuesday, March 10th, at the University of Auckland in Auckland, New Zealand. That's just gone up today as a Facebook message, and kind of excited about that.
That's very sweet.
All right, so there was a video, and this is what I wanted to talk to Robert about, being as he is an expert on scriptural history and so forth. He's kind of the go-to guy for a lot of this. On the Ten Commandments and the historicity of them. There was a video that I saw that came out about a month ago by PragerU.
Those of you listening on the podcast, Aaron did just do air quotes there. You couldn't see it. He air quoted university.
Yeah, because I mean, I thought that there might actually be a brick and mortar construct, or at least a virtual university of some kind of online thing, but I don't know. I just looked it up, and it looks like it's no more than a YouTube channel calling itself a university. Honestly, is what it looks like, because the courses, if you look for the courses,
more air quotes
videos. Yeah, so they're not anything you would attend a class either in person or online. They're a single 10-minute video and not a lesson plan or anything like that. And they are all the absurd right-wing propaganda that you expect from, well, the Liberty University types. So Prager is apparently trying to be a pretend liberty.
Aaron, turn your gain down just a little bit. You're going in and out. I don't know if you banged your mic or
I did. I just moved the mic also.
Okay, yeah, you're cutting out just a tiny bit.
All right. How about now?
Sounds
Is
good.
that clear? Okay. All right. I'm hoping it's coming in clear because all I did was adjust the mic, and which I can do again if need be. So Prager University came up with
Yep,
this video.
hold on. You're it's too loud, Aaron. It's too loud. It's too loud. You did something because when you hit the high notes, it completely cuts out.
Well,
Bear with us, folks. At least we don't have a guest.
I'll just move the mic away where it was before. How's that? Is that a little better?
That sounds good. That sounds good.
All right.
On the scene, tech control, folks, but we're back.
Okay. So anyway, Prager University comes up with this video talking about the introduction to a series they're going to do about the Ten Commandments. And the introduction was full of so much wrong that I really think it would cause me an aneurysm if I were to try to look at the individual ones where he explains. He has a separate video for each of the 10 that he's aware of. And he's going to try to explain them. But as I said, the introduction for that had so much wrong in it that I couldn't help but make a response video to that. And one of the things that he was claiming was that the Ten Commandments has had more impact on world history. Nothing ever changed the world for the better more than, or no document did, more than the Ten Commandments. And of course, this is the reason I wanted to have a historian on the show to talk about how many different documents have we had that have had a greater impact toward improvement than the Ten Commandments did. Even if we were to imagine that the Ten Commandments were ever actually part of history at all, which they weren't, and I know Bob's position on this, that they just weren't. And the weird thing is I mean, the religious right really want to tout the Ten Commandments so bad. Yeah, as you know, here in Texas, our Board of Education has approved books that they recommended to have inclusions of Moses as the inspiration for the U.S. Constitution, that the covenant between God and man, meaning specifically the Ten Commandments, were the inspiration of the U.S. Constitution and judicial system, and that the United States government is founded on the Ten Commandments. Even though there's no representation for most of these commandments anywhere in American law. Yes, it is true that thou shalt not kill, unless we're talking about a death state, because it doesn't say murder, does it? It says kill, which is extremely vague. And I need to point out that our most recent governor, the longest term governor we've ever had, has killed hundreds more prisoners than any other governor in U.S. history. So is he following the Ten Commandments? Okay, so it's also illegal to steal, as it is in every other country in the world. The ninth commandment in that first set, known as the Decalogue, the ninth commandment is a prohibition not against lying, against false witness against thy neighbor, right? So you can't give a false testimony. Not specifically eliminating lying, but perjury, perhaps. None of the other commandments have any representation in American law at all. The United States, the First Amendment violates the First Commandment, for example.
That should be on a shirt.
That's a really good idea, by the way. I think we should just go ahead with that. First Amendment versus First Commandment. Because we have a country that is founded on freedom of religion, and of course the First Commandment doesn't allow that. The Second Commandment doesn't allow us to make graven images. Not that we shouldn't worship false gods. This is something that is often misinterpreted, mistranslated. It does not just say not to worship false gods. It says do not make any engraving or any rendering of any kind, of any living, of anything that is in heaven or earth. So no depictions or renderings of anything recognizable. Abstract art is permissible only by omission, but what the Second Commandment does not allow is that you cannot fashion anything. And I think what they're usually talking about is, figurines or whatever, but it does say engravings or graven images. No artistic representations whatsoever. And then it says, and don't worship them. So don't make them and don't worship them. So what they're talking about is creating things that might then come alive. And the reason that I think they've done this is because of the old belief, that the many times repeated belief throughout the history or the ancestry of the Jews. You have the golem spell, where you fashion a figurine out of clay and then you breathe into it the breath of life and it becomes alive. And if people were to fashion these clay figurines, they can either worship them as a god or breathe into them the breath of life and become like unto gods, and those things would come alive.
Well, like God did to Adam, that's how it works.
It's a golem spell, and that's how Adam was, according to that story.
Make a little clay man, blow some air in his nose, and you got a person. Simple.
Exactly. Man, I wish Robert was here, because I would really love to have his input on this. He and I, we've met only once in Irvine, California, for a Free Thought convention. He's going to be in Vancouver in June for the Imagine No Religion 5 conference, and I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be up there with Lawrence Krauss and Richard Dawkins and, of course, Robert Price, and a number of other people that I can't wait to see again, Miriam Namazi, Faisal Saeed, Del Matar, and so on. So if you're able to get into that area, great. Moving on to the Ten Commandments. None of these, as I said, have any representation, where you can't commit adultery, for example. Where is that in American law, right?
Too fun, man. Back then, everybody had several wives, and it was a good old time. So they said, let's just keep that shit out in the Ten Commandments and out of the Constitution.
In the first 10 commandments that they give, the fourth commandment there is about keeping the Sabbath. Now, we do have a few blue laws, and certain stores that are closed on Sundays, or certain things that can't be sold on Sunday, but the prohibition on the Sabbath is that you cannot work on a Sunday. Well, it doesn't say Sunday, it says on the Sabbath, and of course this was written by Jews, which means that it's going to be from Friday night to Saturday night. So what is actually the Sabbath, right? So it's somewhere between Friday night and Sunday night now, which means any time in the weekend. We don't know, but it's supposed to be a capital offense. You're supposed to kill people when you see them working on weekends.
Right.
That's the way it's spelled out. So if you can kill somebody for picking up sticks, you can damn sure kill somebody for working at 7-Eleven or tending bar on a Saturday night, or after midnight, whatever, regardless what state you're in.
It's funny, because in the modern world, if that was held true, society would literally collapse. Power plants, fucking, water, sanitation, everything.
And of course, it gets a lot better than that, because we're not just talking about what everybody thinks is the Ten Commandments, because nobody reads everyone's favorite storybooks. Nobody reads it. So, and the few who do clearly don't understand it, or I don't know what they're doing, how they avoid these things. I mean, like when you look at Exodus 20, for example. Exodus 20 has 11 commandments in it, and the last commandment, which is never included in the first 10, in the Decalogue, is not one of the divine commandments that they always want to put up on the plaques and put up on courthouses. That's the one that says, "Thou shalt false gods." It's not the second commandment. It's not that the 11th commandment is repeated. The second commandment. It's a different phrasing. It's a different commandment, and then the list continues through Exodus 21. 23, and then that's just, I didn't bother to count them, but the list goes on, and there's several of them. There are commandments in there, including that if you're going to lend money to a Jewish person, you should not charge interest because they're Jewish. So we have ethno-specific favoritism, right? I mean, Jews get special rights. If you have a Jewish slave, for example, Jewish slaves have a right or provision where they can get out of being a slave after they serve this period of time, whereas The people of other races don't get that benefit, because this is where we have racism built into the Ten Commandments. And one of Prager's claims in the video that I responded to was that the Ten Commandments were somehow responsible for the United States ending slavery. The Ten Commandments. Yeah, if you read through those commandments, the commandments not only, he said that they also enabled us to provide equality for women, the Ten Commandments, somehow. And what was the other thing?
We better fucking get with it then, right?
That we created parliamentary democracy because of the Ten Commandments, which the Ten Commandments are completely authoritarian, right? You will obey the word of whatever the priest is telling you that their God is whispering in their ear. That's what you're going to listen to, so you're effectively going to follow the priests without question, no matter what, under penalty of death.
I don't remember seeing anything about ballot boxes in the Bible.
Exactly. There's no kind of democratic process endorsed or permitted anywhere in that.
All right, I just got a reply back from Daryl Ray. He may want to pop in and be a guest with us. Is that all right with you? The good doctor?
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
Right, I'll see if I'm
happy to have him.
Go on while I try to set this up.
Yeah, and now you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if it's happening for everybody else. Maybe it's just on my system. I don't know. But, so, and about the quality of women thing, I mean, I brought up in the commandments where there's a few times where women are bought and sold, or effectively bought and sold. See, if you have a virgin daughter who gets raped, then there's an exchange of money, and it gives an amount. It says in 50 shekels, so there's no accounting for inflation, right? There's no accounting for international currency, none of that. It's very specific to that region in that time, and it's nothing short of barbaric. The idea that anybody would ever claim that the Ten Commandments were the foundation or a guide for morality. My initial response was, and I typed this out as a response to his video, that what absolute horseshit. That was the only thing, that was the most eloquent I could be at that moment, because everything he said was so incredibly wrong. One of the things, like I said, to bring up this list of commandments that all have all these additional laws that nobody pays attention to in Exodus 21, 22, 23, you'd be surprised at some of the stuff that's in there, which are still commandments. And there's a preface on it in Exodus 21. And right at the beginning, it says, "Now these are the edicts that you will present to the people." And at the end, in Exodus 24, when Moses mountain, it says, and that Moses had an accounting of everything that God had said during the 40 days and 40 nights that he was up there. So we're not talking about 10 things. They didn't go up there for 40 days and 40 nights and have 10 things said to him. There was a point where he says he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights because he had to copy it all down, and apparently it's a really arduous task to staple all that into stone. I guess whatever language he was chiseling away in. But he has this huge list, and the list includes things like how barbarically you can beat your slaves before you are criminalized for, like, abuse of animals, that kind of thing. And there's no kind of human category for slaves to be put in unless they're Hebrew. And then there's a loophole written in there where you can use, if you have a Hebrew slave and you give him a wife and then he has children with that wife, you still own them. They don't ever go free. So you can hold them as ransom, because only men have rights, right? Period. Even with slaves, only men have rights, even if they're your slaves. So there's no kind of gender equality being promoted here. There's nowhere was there democracy in here. Ending slavery was a laugh. The Bible completely endorses slavery all the way through. Back even Jesus, who tells slaves that they must be obedient to their masters. But what people don't realize is that when Moses broke the first commandments, because, this is what you're going to do when God gives you his divine law, right? When you go down the hill and you find out that your own brother has already built a false god, then what you're going to do is, rather than correct him like a rational person, you're going to destroy something that was given to you directly by God. That's what you would do, right? And then you're going to go back up to God and say, "Do that again because I broke it."
Well, it's not that far off from transcribing your rules from golden plates in a hat.
Okay, now we're talking about Mormons now. Okay, so
I'm just talking about shit. All right, that's all.
When Moses went back up the mountain, he was supposed to get the Ten Commandments again, and I don't know what the communication failure was with this, because originally it was God that gave him, I don't know, 40 commandments or so in one stint. In Exodus 20, he comes down with a whole crap load of different commandments, way more than 10. He comes down with dozens of them. And then when he goes back up, then God says, no, you write it yourself. Right? He'll dictate, and Moses is supposed to sit there and chisel away. So when Moses comes down with the commandments, it took him 40 days and 40 nights just to write 10, and that's it. And so it's not even from the original Decalogue. God said that they would be exactly the same as they were before, and most of them are, sort of, but they're paraphrased. Every one of them is different, actually, but the only ones that you could argue are actually the same as the first two. And there's an inclusion of another one that's out of order, and then none of the remaining ones came from the original Decalogue. All but one came from elsewhere in Exodus 21, 22, 23, and then there's one that comes from a completely different book that doesn't have a preface to it at all. It just came out of nowhere. So there's no consistency in this at all. And according to the Bible, the infallible Word of God, according to the Bible, Moses comes down with his second list, and the second list is the one that talks about not boiling a sheep in its own mother, a baby goat in its own mother's milk, and how you have to observe the Feast of Weeks, and you have to observe all these different religious holidays. Suddenly there's no prohibition against killing or stealing or lying or any of that. There's no kind of, you better behave nice thing. There's instead, there's all these rituals you have to attend. And one of the things about the sacrifice, you have to bring all of your best fruits and all like this. You have to surrender those to the men of the cloth. And the same guy that had just made a false god in his chapters is now a priest because he's Moses' brother. When he ordered that everybody else should be killed, who makes him a priest instead. None of the story makes any sense. There's no historical authenticity to any of it. But my favorite part is the fourth commandment is no longer about observing the Sabbath. The fourth commandment is about executing your children on the altar. Now, some of the people that were reading the comments, or that were writing in the comments that I produced when I made my reply video, which I posted less than 24 hours ago, a lot of people wanted to argue, and a lot of people often do argue, that the Bible doesn't say that you can execute your children. It never says that that your child or a human child should be sacrificed. The Bible in no way endorses human sacrifice, but in fact it does. And some people that try to argue about that I had this wrong say that when they go to this one reference, because I gave a half a dozen different citations for where the Bible talks about this, and they said that if you read it, this one link doesn't specify human children. But let me see. I gave in Exodus 22:29, thou shalt not delay to offer up the first of thy ripe fruits and the firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give to me. Now, I'm not thinking the son is represented by a lamb or a goat or something like that. The son. They are talking about human children there. That's what it says. Exodus 34:19. The first offspring of every womb belongs to me, and separately, secondarily, all your male livestock, the first offspring from cattle and sheep. Now, does every womb mean every exact people? I don't think so. And if it did, why would they have to put the addition of "and" of your cattle? Then in Numbers 3:13, for all of the firstborn are mine. Again, he says all of the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, when again he was talking about human children, and it was specified there. I sanctified to myself all the firstborn in Egypt, or excuse me, all the firstborn in Israel, from man to beast. They shall be mine. I am the Lord. So I have critics arguing that I'm wrong because these citations don't specify about human children. Very clearly, it is. It is specifying that they are talking about your human firstborn male child. You will kill on the altar. This is also clarified in the prophets because this is how it was interpreted. People are telling me that I'm not interpreting it correctly. But if you look at Ezekiel 20:26, I defiled them through their very gifts in their offering up of all their firstborn, in order that I might horrify them, so that they know that I am the Lord. So they don't know that you're the Lord unless they are horrified. And are you horrified when you sacrifice a sheep or a goat? Perhaps, if particularly squeamish, but that's not so for these people. In order to be horrified, it has to be their firstborn male child, which has already been specified. Then looking on to Leviticus 27, verses 28 and 29. Notwithstanding, no devoted thing that a man shall devote unto the Lord of all that he hath, both of man and beast, specified, and the field of his possession, shall be sold or redeemed. And let me make sure I'm reading that right. No devoted thing shall be sold or redeemed. Get this? It says every devoted thing, and devoted means that what you're giving over to sacrifice. Every devoted is most holy to the Lord. None devoted, which shall be devoted of men, shall be redeemed, but shall surely be put to death. Now, people want to talk about this loophole that in Exodus 34:20, there's a line that says, "You shall redeem with a lamb the first offspring from a donkey. And if you do not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. You shall redeem all the firstborn of your sons." And then says, "None shall appear before me empty-handed." So if you're some sort of a specialist, which I realize would be rare at that time period, but if you were a cobbler or a cooper or something like that, and you don't have your own livestock, well, then you have to surrender your son. No one will appear empty-handed. And while it does say, the loophole that people are talking about, it does have the loophole that you can redeem a lamb with the first offspring of a donkey. It does not say that you could redeem your son that way. A lot of people want to read into it. I mean, here else it says, I'm going to have to take that livestock are all considered roughly equivalent, but and certainly not with your firstborn, not if you're free people. Then once again, going back to Leviticus 27, verses 28 and 29, it says that it shall not be redeemed. Yet another contradiction. The Bible constantly contradicts itself, but it says you cannot redeem, and both of man and beast shall surely be put to death. Yes, the Bible condones human sacrifice for the purpose of horrifying the believers. And this is a guide to morality somehow. And people have posted, this is where we got the foundation of the United States government and our legal system. This is incredibly atrocious. And I know somebody's going to come back and, well, you didn't interpret it right, because if you take this word to mean this other thing and this other word to mean this other thing, if you change enough words, enough of the meanings of enough words, you can make the sentence say something else. But I'm not doing that. I don't have no obligation to apologize for these things. That's what it says. It says sacrifice your firstborn male child.
Right. I mean, if you change enough words of the Bible, you can make it a Batman cartoon too, but that's not
Yeah, well, I'm not a scriptural expert, which is why I invited Bob on here, because I wanted somebody to be able to verify. Does it really say that? Am I reading this right? Because all I'm doing is I'm not going by what my preacher told me to believe. I'm not reading the apologists' interpretation where they skip over the important bits in their sermons on Sunday. I'm just reading what the book says. And I'm reading and saying, well, holy shit, it actually says that. Right. And then I take that to people, other religious people, and they say the Bible doesn't say that. And as I've mentioned so many times before, it's surprising how often it is that that's not what the Bible says, immediately changes into that's not what the Bible means.
Right. Completely
Because
different.
it does say that. Now they've got to come up with some kind of excuse. And why don't they know that it says that? This is frustrating. Why don't they know? Okay. What is your input?
I just would like to say that I just got a note from Robert on Facebook. He can't seem to get into his Google account, so that's the problem. The one he's going to use for this. I told him that we would rally back up and have him on at another time. I take it like, I mean, the things that you said about semantics of wording and stuff is apparent. The Bible is filled with contradictions and words that can be that people like to say can be viewed a different way, and there is a small part that says, well, it was a different time and there was different cultural things, but talking about murder and trying to say that the Bible is why we don't kill each other is the problem that I have. We don't kill each other because we are innately compassionate about others. I don't. If you are not psychotic, if you do not have a mental problem that makes you not have empathy and compassion, we are just like that by nature. So if Christianity or another religion tries to steal that away, I have a real problem with that in general. Morals are not the exclusive domain of religion. They're not the exclusive domain of anyone.
Hey, Mark, I need you to just monologue for just a moment. I got Bob on the phone, and I'll be right back to you. Okay?
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Aaron's stepping away. Again, when you're thinking about morals and what's right and what's wrong, and when the religious tries to step in and tries to take that stuff over and tell people this is why we don't do bad things. And when people do bad things, it's because they don't have religion. That is a very powerful tool for manipulating people and putting people down the wrong path. If your answer is always you will do the right thing if you follow these rules that only come from religion, then it's a no-brainer that you're going to be left with only the good sides of things in people's mind that want to believe, and the bad things kind of get washed away. As far as the Ten Commandments and being the basis of government and parliamentary order and all those things, clearly that's another issue that is just a farce and is used to try to connect where we are today to a 2,000-year-old collection of thoughts and bullshit from different authors. I did want to say that the hangout today, for the people that have signed up for the supporting the podcast, obviously isn't going to have the guest, and that's okay. But we do have quite a few people that have signed up, and I'm going to be making the link for those people to get into that right now. And I encourage everyone to support Aaron's Patreon account first. We had some people say, why did you guys set this up if the Patreon money is going towards the curriculum building with Aaron, and that's true. We are basically using the money from the supporting people of the podcast to fund the podcast and to market it and try to make it grow. That's all. So the people that were asking those questions, that should help fix that. Aaron is
thank you for that. That was
no problem.
Yeah, what can I say? Old men in technology. Same thing we did with them.
Yeah, ran out of steam. I can't go like you can on a whim, man.
I'm nothing. Have you seen Matt Dillahunty? that guy can go. Okay, so I'm curious. I really would love to have an interactive for this kind of thing because this is something that people really want to defend.
Yeah, it would be nice
adamantly. You know, they
on the other side.
I don't know yeah, even atheists that have been raised with the Bible very often have a problem realizing that, you know, it says some of the stuff that it does. You know, it's alarming that it actually says this sort of thing. I did just ask Bob in a cursory way over the phone, you know, am I right? Does the Bible actually say that, you know, condones human sacrifice? And yes, it does. I think I've addressed the people's counter arguments where they say that there's a loophole that you can use. Well, no, that loophole is counteracted in Leviticus, but then there's something counteracting the Bible everywhere in the Bible. That's why it's not a book of morals. One of the challenges that I make about people when they say that they want to use the Bible as a moral guide, and this really hurts the believers, I ask them to show me something that the Bible says that is actually moral. And then show me something that the Bible says that is actually moral, and stay with it. In other words, in the next chapter or the next verse doesn't then tell you to go back and do the thing it just told you not to do. You know, like when it says, you know, thou shalt not kill, then the next page says go kill every man and his brother, because it's literally what it does. So it's frustrating that even atheists will often have this thing about the way they were raised to believe what the book said. And a lot of atheists were like former seminary students, and they've been taught this one type of interpretation for so long that it's deeply ingrained, and very often it's difficult to realize that it actually says this, or that this is the only thing that could possibly mean.
I just invited Brian Fields from Pennsylvania Non-Believers and the PA Coalition of Reason to pop in, so he may be popping into the panel here in a bit. Just want to let you hear.
Okay, and I was going to say something else about using the Bible as a moral guide. Oh, don't you hate when you draw a blank, especially when you're like on camera and the clock is ticking?
That's what I was just talking about when you left. Moral guide bullshit, you know? And like I said, if somebody tries to say that the Bible is the only moral compass, I take a very huge and violent response to that, because when people say, you know, you can't be a good person without this, that basically wipes out everyone else from having good intentions in general. And that's insulting.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Bible, there really is, I challenge people on this all the time, show me something moral. And this is the thing that gets me about believers. They know that they can't show me anything. They define it in an inaccurate way, unless they say that it's moral because God said so. There's never anything that is objectively moral that we can say would be moral. Even when God orders us to keep slaves, or God orders us to kill the Amalekites or whatever, well, it's because God said so. No, it's not. It doesn't become moral because God gives you permission. God is not that kind of corrupt stepdad that whatever he says goes, whether it's legal or not. You know. And finally, welcome. We have a guest. Do I recognize you, sir? Did we meet in Irvine, California?
No, we've met a couple times. I go to the A-cons all the time. We met in Salt Lake City and in Texas, and just a couple times.
And this is the man that is putting together the PA Atheist Conference that we're going to be at. So I wanted to bring him in. We were talking about it a little earlier, Brian. We're really happy to be coming. We were having Robert Price on here to talk Ten Commandments and their validity or lack thereof, or
okay.
Actually. I just wanted to bring you on. We're talking about how people try to use Ten Commandments as our moral guide, or they try to say that they're the basis of the government and things like that. So that's kind of where we're at.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, it's funny to me. You know, there are two sets of Ten Commandments in the Bible, and I'm sure you guys have covered it. I'm coming in late, obviously. I'm out of what's going on, but yeah, it's just fascinating to me. I think people see the Ten Commandments as more of kind of a abstract concept rather than a list of guidelines for their life. They they sign the dotted line when they say they're religious, and they say that they believe, and they don't really think about, well, okay, well, what does the Ten Commandments really mean? I mean, everybody points to, well, okay, don't steal, don't murder or kill, depending upon how you want to interpret it. Don't commit adultery, things like that, and that's how they think about it. And they don't actually just read the Ten Commandments and think that the vast majority of them are really about God saying, yeah, you guys have to listen to me and follow everything I say, and oh, by the way, here's these really obvious things that if you just sat down and thought about it for a couple seconds, that people of that particular generation might find as, something that would be a moral compass. But, and I think I just heard Aaron saying when I came in, oh, well, let's not bother with slavery because, well, slavery contextually doesn't matter because everybody's doing it. And, of course, it's okay. So, when you talk about a set of guidelines that's supposed to last into eternity because, hey, God's immortal and all-knowing, all-powerful, and all that other stuff, it's pretty absurd that when you have an eternity worth of a moral yardstick to measure up, that the Ten Commandments doesn't even come close.
Right, considering the context of the time by itself, it doesn't come close, let alone on the long, as you used, yardstick of how times change and what becomes acceptable and not acceptable. Just in the time it was supposedly written, it didn't match up.
I would be impressed if there was a verse in the Bible that said, "Yeah, gay people are all right, and they should get married," or
Right.
don't worry about. I mean, slavery is bad. Just something that would be outside of the moral framework that they lived in. But what you got is
in the conversation.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in the video that we were talking about today, which I don't know if you've seen it, Prager University did this video on the Ten Commandments where they're introducing their series where they're going to explain each of the Ten Commandments as if there were only 10, and as if they were the ones that that everybody in the courthouses wanted to be, rather than the ones that the Bible says that it is. Oh man, and I just spaced myself again about what I was going to say about that. What Prager said about the Ten Commandments, it was so outrageous. I hate when I do that. I prefaced the statement so much I forgot what it was. I'm getting Alzheimer's.
Your preamble is too long.
Okay, so you didn't hear any of that coming up? Hello? Do I still have sound?
I hear it.
No, you mean do you think did Brian saw the video? I don't think he would have seen it.
No. I didn't see it. No. I've seen apologists talk about the Ten Commandments, but yeah, I haven't seen that one in particular.
Well, this guy was talking about, Brian, he was talking about how the Ten Commandments is the basis for the Constitution, and even further back, the basis for democratic government in general. So, I mean, that's what he was saying.
So what he's essentially saying is the Ten Commandments was set up in 2,000-3,000 years before the birth of, well, let's just say the birth of the Roman Empire. 2,000-3,000 years ago, the Ten Commandments was the basis for democracy, even though democracy was invented by the Greeks and then imported to an extent into Roman society. So, which was pagan and had nothing to do with any of the Judeo-Christian religious texts. So these concepts that, were then refined through the Enlightenment, which had nothing to do with or very little to do with religious belief whatsoever. So let's just ignore thousands of years of history and just make shit up.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Exactly. Aaron, are you still on here? I don't know if you can hear us. It's just us, Brian. It's just us. Welcome to the Raw Men Podcast.
Well, I didn't mean to come in and kick off Aaron.
I can see him. I don't know if he can hear us. And before you came on, I was saying the thing that gets me the most is the idea that morals are a mandate from God and not just innate in us. There's no.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that we are naturally compassionate about each other and other living things. It's not about our desire to have our species survive and other species survive. It's about a mandate from something invisible, and you take it a step further and it becomes a tool to keep people in line by saying, you've got to do these things that we know the most about and we can tell you about, so you, A, go to heaven, and B, you live in a way that this magical being wants you to. That's the thing about it with me, is the control and throwing out the innate immorals and the innate desire to be good to each other, just right off the top.
Yeah, I see Aaron talking. I can't hear him.
It's okay. It's okay. We can